What's up, everyone? It's an Ivesai here, and today I'm going to be doing a comparison between the Sebenza 31 and the Sebenza 21, and basically everything on these knives that have changed with the new progression of the 31 and everything that is still the same. So this is one of those videos that has been suggested by a lot of my viewers. Almost every time I put out a Sebenza video out there, a lot of people don't know what the differences are. Maybe they weren't caught up when the 31 came out, but I'm going to make this video because I think that it is important and there definitely is a demand for it. So one thing about this is that these changes are all very little, but there is a lot of details and kind of complicated things that go into these changes. And so if any of you guys have a question like what a word means or anything, feel free and ask it in the comment section and I will try and help you out to the best of my abilities. And there probably is a Reeve fan out there who will help you out even if you don't want his help. But anyway, first I'm going to get into the obvious visuals between these knives. Basically the changes that, like, if you see a post of a Sebenza on Instagram, you'll be able to tell if it's a 21 or a 31. And the first one is this locating hole. It is on the 21, but it has been removed on the 31. And the reason that they had the locating hole was, I think, to kind of put the knife together in the same way every single time, but due to improvements in the production process, I guess that this hole is no longer necessary, and it does look a little bit cleaner, and they did change the inlay pattern because of it, which I'll talk about shortly. But it's one of those things where the locating hole, it never really bothered me, and I think especially on these 21 with inlays, the inlays kind of go around it and kind of make it a lot less subtle, because the point that you focus on in these handles is these inlays and not really that hole right there. And so at the end of the day, it's not one of those things that is that big of a deal. And if you have a 21 that's got the locating hole, I mean, it's not like bad or anything. And so now for the second kind of obvious visual change is the pocket clip. So as you can see here, they are the exact same pocket clip, but this Sebenza 21 pocket clip, which is the older model, sits right on that lock bar, and this one actually sits on the other side of the titanium, and it is canted. So a lot of people were confused on why they changed this, because the reason they changed the pocket clip position from the Sebenza 25 to the Inkosi, that was the model before the Inkosi came out, if you guys are wondering, the reason that they changed that was because the way the pocket clip was set up right here and the way the two finger grooves were, that pocket clip created a hot spot. Now for the 21, this pocket clip does not create a hot spot at all, and so I guess that maybe they just changed it because it does carry better in the pocket. But some people, I've heard them say that this Sebenza 31 clip is a hot spot, but for me it's not a hot spot at all. And so it's one of those things where ergonomics, I can't say for sure because I don't know your hand size. I don't know how fat your hands are, how wide they are, how big your fingers are. It's one of those things where ergonomics are varied between every single person out there. And so all I can say for you guys is both these clips are not a hot spot, but the 31 clip actually does carry better because this clip is canted right here. And what that does is it makes this knife kind of hug the seam of your pants a little bit more. And so maybe if you carry a lot of things in the pocket with your knife, you will have a little bit more room to reach around. And for this 21, this just sits in right here, and I just carry a wallet in the same pocket as my knife, and so I don't really need to get around that much because my wallet's kind of big. And so it's one of those things where for me, this pocket clip change is not really a change to me at all, but this very well could be something that really impacts the way you carry your knife or maybe how it feels in your hand. So the last obvious visual is the new inlay pattern, and here's the old inlay pattern, just the kind of two separate inlays. And I assume that they did it like this so that it would kind of work around this locating hole, but I have a picture here. It's in black and white, so sorry about that, but this is the new inlay pattern right there. And that's actually not really a new inlay pattern. It is the old inlay pattern on the original Sebenzas. And so that's a cool thing for a lot of the people who have been fans of the Sebenza for like 20 or 25 years. So yeah, I guess that's cool. But I kind of like these inlays. You know, I don't really know why I like them more, but I think it might just be that the Sebenza, these inlays are kind of more iconic. And the Sebenza on the new 31, it just kind of looks like every other inlay out there. So I think that these ones kind of give it a sense of identity, I guess. I'm not entirely sure what I'm trying to say here, but I do like these just a tad bit more. A lot of people might accuse me of saying, oh, you just like them because you have the 21 and not the 31 in inlays, and honestly, that could very well be the case, but at the end of the day, both the inlays are good. I just might prefer the ones on the 21 a little bit. And I forgot to mention this, but the knives that I have here on the table, I have the Sebenza 21. This is the large with the Insingo blade and the black micarta inlays. And then this is the Sebenza 31. This is the plain Jane version, which that's a word that gets, or two words, I guess, that gets used a lot in the Chris Reeve community, plain Jane. And a lot of people don't know what that means. And a lot of people refer it to as PJs, and that would always confuse me. So basically what a plain Jane is, it's the most basic version with the blue lanyard pin, the blue thumb stud, the regular stonewashed blade, and then the regular bead blasted handles. So now for one of the biggest changes in my opinion, it is the addition to a ceramic ball lock bar insert on the 31, which is the same as on the Umnumzan and the Nkosi. And what it serves as a detent ball, which holds this blade in position when it is closed, and it also serves as the lock interface. So basically what is coming in contact with the tang of that blade. So I'm gonna try and show this on camera to the best of my abilities here. Hopefully it works out fine, but all right, let me see. Can you guys see that there? Okay, I think that you guys probably can see that there. And so there is that little ball that is kind of in the middle of that lock bar. And what it does is that comes in contact with the blade, and this definitely isn't gonna show, but maybe if I put it like right there, you might be able to see that ball. I'm not entirely sure. As you can tell, the production of this video is not the best. But basically what it is a very hard ceramic ball that serves as a detent and comes in contact with that blade. And on the 21, what it is a carburized lock face. Basically, that is where they heat up and harden the lock, which makes it more durable over time. So I'm trying to get that to show up there. Don't know how easy it is to see, but basically there is no lock bar insert for the 21. They basically just harden that titanium there. But on the 31, there is a lock bar insert. And a lot of Chris Reeve fans out there are a lot of hard users. And generally, it is known that knives with no lock bar insert will last a little bit longer. There is less room for lock slip, which is an issue on all of the 31s, all of the Nkosis, all of the Umnumzans, and I'm not necessarily sure if it's an issue. Actually, Eugene Kwan did a video talking about it. I think it was very good. But basically, what you can do if you hold your 31 or Umnumzan or Nkosi, or if you don't have one, just watch, you can push down a little bit, and there's just a slight bit of movement there. And it's one of those things where if I was batoning, I would hit it and then it would just pop right back up. So I really don't feel like that this knife is going to fail in any way. I wouldn't baton with my Sebenza, and I wouldn't suggest it, just so you know. And also the ceramic ball, it's also supposed to have the lock last longer. And so if I had this in a machine that would constantly open and close the knife consistently and pretty fast, this knife, the 31, would probably last longer than the 21. But it's one of those things where if you're actually comparing them in real life and every time you actually open the knife for use, it's one of those things where you're not going to live to see the day where either of these knives really fail, unless you really unless you're either doing something stupid with it, or you maybe kind of adjust the lock bar and do something that you really shouldn't do. And so, yeah, that's one of the biggest changes, the addition to the ceramic ball lock bar insert. And my preference is with the 21, just because it's that carburized lock, and I just prefer the titanium on the metal rather than the ceramic ball on the metal. And as you can see here, hopefully this will show up, there is a little bit of a mark right there, and that's where the ceramic ball hits. And I've actually seen an issue where some people's Sebenza 31s have worn in kind of a divot, which can create lock stick, because that ceramic ball is very hard. And if you guys don't know, a ceramic is a material used a lot in sharpening supplies, and so it can remove metal. And so it's one of those things where sometimes there might be the chance that it wears a divot in that blade. And it's one of those things for you hardcore master sharpeners out there. I had this theory, and I really don't want to try it because I'd probably mess up my knife and my handle of my knife. But what if you're in the field and you field strip this and then took the blade and sharpen it on that ceramic ball. I know it'd be near impossible to do it just because it's so small, but technically it might be able to give you an edge in the field. So if you are Bear Grylls out there, I guess that may be a cool thing for you. So next one, for the action and the audio, and keep in mind that when I'm doing this video, I am looking at notes, and so if I ever kind of stop and pause, I'm just reading my notes here. I usually don't use notes. I usually just kind of wing it, and that's kind of how I do things around here. But so for the action and the audio, there is no hiccup on the 31, but there is on the 21. Just listen. The only time that detent ball, it just leaves the blade there and then comes in contact with the blade tang right there. And what it does for the 21 is the detent ball does not serve as the ceramic lock bar interface system. So what it does is when it passes this, when the tang passes that detent ball, it makes that slight noise there. So there's technically 2 clicks like this. There's 2 clicks with the 21. Now if you're opening it normal, you'll only really hear 1 click, but my preference is I actually kind of like the opening noise of the 21 more than the 31. It is more of a higher pitched click, as you hear when I do it like that, and on the 31, it's more of a thwack, like this. Now they both are really cool, and that noise is pretty good, just hearing that lock up. It's just kind of like a thwack though, and less than a click. And as I was doing these notes at night, I just wrote, what am I doing with my life? Because I am seriously comparing the noise of the action that these knives make. But for closing action, I actually like the Sebenza 31 more. And it very well could be because the detent strength might be a little bit different. But there's the closing action of the 31. And there's the 21. 21 just sounds a little bit lower pitched. And the 31 is just a little bit higher pitched. Now, keep in mind that the 31, like the detent on it, does feel a little bit stronger. They both are very well, or not very well. The detents are both very nicely tuned. I'm just struggling with grammar right now, but I will kind of maybe show the difference right here. There's my 21. There isn't really much suction at all with these detents, which I kind of like for a thumb stud. But there is just a little bit more with that 31. And actually the action on my 21 is better and came like this out of the box. It like drops free to my thumb because that pivot bushing, when you have pressure off the lock bar, it's just free dropping. But obviously when there's that lock bar pressure, the detent rubbing against the detent track, it won't really drop shut. And so for those people who want to drop shut action, you know, Sebenza obviously is not your knife. But for the 31, it does not drop to my hand. And now, is this an issue at all? No, because I would close it like this pretty much every time. For the 21, I go like that and then go like this. So it's one of those things where I think that sometimes the micarta inlaid versions come a little bit smoother out of the box than just the plain Jane versions. And so it's like, I don't know if I can actually definitively say that it is a difference between the 21 and the 31, but at least it is a difference between my 2 knives. So for the next category, I will be talking about the blade. And the blade is pretty much identical. You know, at least for the drop point blade shape, they have not released Insingos for the 31, and they also have not released Tonto blades for the 31. But for the drop point blade, I saw an Apostle P video where he talked about the 31. I will link that in the description if you want to check it out. It's kind of weird for me to shout out him when he has like 30,000 subs. But basically what I'm trying to say is he has sharpened many 31s, and he says that they do not thicken up at the tip because he sharpens on a fixed angled system, which I think is really cool. And a lot of people don't like the drop point blade shape on the 21 because it does thicken up at the tip. And so if you have a fixed angled system, let's say you're sharpening it at 18 degrees, it will look much thinner here and then kind of widen up at that tip just because it is thicker for more durability. But for the Insingo, I don't think that's an issue for either one of them, but that is a cool thing that I'm a big fan of with the new 31. And so one thing that this very well could be a make or break deal for those hard users out there is that the detent balls on this are in different spots on the lock bar. So therefore, in the actual blade, the detent hole is in a different spot on these 2 knives. And so basically what that means is these blades are different. And so they will not be supplying 21 blades now that is discontinued. So if you are a very hard user and you're like, oh well, I might break this blade, maybe you want to go with the 31 just because you know, you can't really get a blade replacement for it. Now, I would kind of disagree that if you break the Sebenza blade, a lot of people think that this is some kind of dainty, classy knife, but this is a very thick stock, and it looks thinner because that spine is crowned, but I think that this knife should take all the things that a folding knife should be able to take, and so it's one of those things where I doubt that you're going to break your blade, and I've heard people be like, well, I got a blade replacement, and now that I can't get any blades anymore, this Sebenza is going to become a safe queen. I disagree. The hollow grind will let you sharpen it for many, many years and sharpen it many times, but it's one of those things where a lot of people who might run the risk of breaking their blade might want to go with something like the Inkosi 31 or the Umnunzan, and not the 21, because you cannot get a blade replacement now that it is discontinued. So the next category is the chamfering of these two knives. So if you look at the chamfering on the 31 here, on that kind of finger indentation, it is a larger chamfer on there than on this 21. If I can get both of these in frame, hope you guys will be able to see that. And also for the lock bar here, let me both open these two knives, there is a larger chamfer on the 31 than there is on the 21. And I actually don't really like that chamfer because if you guys don't know, when knives are thinner, they are actually a little bit more uncomfortable. It's the knives are very thick, kind of like a Benchmade Griptilian or something that is just super fat, and it just kind of really just melts into your palm. But when any spot on a knife is very thin, you know, and you're putting your finger on that, that will be a little bit more uncomfortable than a knife that is thicker. And there is no sharp corners on this because there still is a chamfer on the 21, but that does feel a little bit more comfortable on my pointer finger. Now, is this a hot spot? No. And is it really that much discomfort? Not at all. It's just one of those things that you might want to keep in mind, and a big reason why knives are thinner may cause hot spots, or like if you think about it, a pocket clip is very thin, and a lot of times that will be a deciding factor if the knife is a hot spot or not, basing it on where it sits inside your hand. So I kind of disagree with this chamfer on the 31 here, and I just wish that it was just the same size as the 21. So there might be another chamfer that maybe it's just me looking at it, but it almost looks like this kind of sweep here is just a little bit more defined, if you will, on the 21 or on the 31 than on the 21 here. There's a shot of the 21. Here's a shot of the 31. It's one of those things, if they are different, you're literally not going to tell it at all. Just me looking over this knife very closely and very detailed, it's one of those things where it just might be a little bit of a change. So, for the next category, which is the stop pin, and I actually learned this from the Apostle P's video, and he is much better at explaining it than I am, so once again, go check out that video, link in description. So, for the 21, the stop pin on this is a two-piece stop pin with a lapped bushing on it. And what lapping is it is basically precision flat grinding, and Chris Reeve does a lot of like that precision flat grinding with Sebenzas because that is a big reason why a lot of people like them, because of all the handwork and all the detail that goes into them. So basically, this stop pin takes more materials and more handwork to make, and on the 31, this is a one-piece stop pin on here. And it is just basically a machined stop pin. And so what you can take away from this, because a lot of people might be like, okay, what's the big deal? The truth is, not really a big deal. Kind of a commonality between all these changes. They're not really a big deal. But what you can take away from these stop pins is that the stop pin on the 21 took precision grinding and more hand work, and the stop pin on the 31 is machined. The stop pin on the 31 should be cheaper to make, but the prices are still the same. And when you think about something being machined, something has to cut it out and kind of form the shape of this stop pin. And one thing that I know is, or that a lot of us knife people know, is that that machine or whatever that cuts it out is not going to stay perfect for a long time. The cutters will dull on it. Maybe it'll just get a little bit raggedy. And it's one of those things where the 21 stop pin is basically just better than the 31. And these knives still cost the same price. So basically, they made a cut to the budget, I guess, and they're still the same price, but this one, the stop pin, it took a little bit more hand effort and detail into it. So if you are wondering about the price, the plain Jane 31 is $450, and the plain Jane 21 is $450. And I was going to look up the comparison between the Inlay 31s and the Inlay 21s, but the thing is, the Inlay 31s kind of filter in and out of stock. This Inlay 21 was $550, and so the Inlay 31, I assume that it's $550, but you know, just check up on your, if you see them in stock at whatever retailer you follow. And so also correct me if I'm wrong on that. So you guys probably heard all of these things and were like, okay, what didn't change on this knife? And the truth is, the things that didn't change are some of the bigger quantities in a knife. One thing that did not change is the jimping on it. And yeah, I counted. There's 21 jimps on the 31 and 21 jimps on the 21. And I wonder if they did 21 individual things of jimping because it was the Sebenza 21. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, both the same amount of jimping, and yeah, I counted that, and I was really having a moment where I kind of considered what I was doing with my life. But the steel on both these knives is S35VN, done at a great heat treat from there, because yeah, they do a really good job with S35VN, and S35VN is one of my favorite steels. I have like pretty much no complaints about it, other than it does not come all that crispy off the stones, or yeah, when you sharpen it, it's just not very sticky and crispy, kind of like a tool steel or 20 CV at a good heat treat. It's one of those things where the heat treat is good, but just the nature of S35VN just doesn't come off that good off sharpening stones. And one question that I have is S45VN, when's it gonna come out? Because that was teased months ago, and it could have had some backup order during the Rona, I guess. Like, they could have gotten a little bit behind on schedule, and you know, you can't really come down on anyone hard for that. But it's one of those things where I know so many people out there that are like, I want an Umanzon, I want it in a Tonto version, I want it in S45VN, or I want it in Kosi with inlays in S45VN. It's one of those things where if you want something very specific like that, it's going to be a very long time before you're able to before you're going to be able to get your hands on it. And it's one of those things where I wish that I could try out some S45VN. I don't expect it to be that much better, but I've actually heard that it comes off stones very nice. And so as a sharpening nerd like I am, that will be something that I am very interested in. The handle material is still the same, 6AL4V titanium, and the blade handle and blade finish on these regular models is still the same, with a stonewash blade and bead blasted handles. The hardware is all the same size and all the same size Allen head. I believe the Allen head is 5/64. Don't take my word for it because it just comes in the Chris Reeve package, so I just use it. You know, I don't really have a separate set of Allen tools. But the thumb studs are also the same. They have the same anodization on the plain Jane ones, the anodization that kind of wears off over opening it and closing it over a while. And so also the pocket clip is the same. Like I said before, it's just in different positions, same exact clip. And the internals, they both have the same washers and the same pivot bushing, but the stop pin is also different, like I mentioned a little bit ago. And the lanyard is the same that comes on just every single model, same lanyard pin, same anodization for the same model. You know, obviously these are different anodizations, but yeah, same lanyard. If you're wondering why I took this lanyard off, it's because I kind of wanted to try it without a lanyard, and I actually carry this top one a lot more than I carry this bottom one. And so, yeah, I kind of like it without the lanyard, but I just haven't taken this one apart to take that lanyard off. So there are also probably some more things that I forgot. You know, if you got any more thing that stays the same, there probably are just so many details with the Sebenza that, I mean, both of these spines are crowned, I guess I could say that, but it's not really, I wouldn't assume that they'd change that on there. And so that's going to do it for the video. I would say that the main things changed on here that are very important is that ceramic ball lock bar insert. And a lot of people, you know, didn't really like that. I would prefer if the lock bar was still carburized. Carburized? Yeah, I think I'm saying that right. But I would prefer if it was still the old way. And also the there's the locating hole removed, new pocket clip position, new inlay pattern, and you can't get blade replacements on the 21 anymore. There's just some little chamfering issues, and these stop pins are just a little bit different. So that's going to do it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. I know this is a long one. I expected it to be like that because I could not do this video in 5 minutes with all the changes made and all the details made to those changes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Like I said before, if you have any questions, please ask them down in the comments. I would be happy to answer them, and I'll see you guys in the next one.